Hi, I'm Marcia Lehman and I'm a Knox County Master Gardener. Today we're going to be pruning a major wheeler honeysuckle. Now this is a native variety of honeysuckle, Lonicera sempervirens. And the sempervirens means that it's semi-evergreen. So it doesn't lose all of its leaves in the winter. It loses a bunch of them, but not all of them. Couple comments about vines. They tend to fall into two major categories. One are the vines that have tendrils, which is a vegetative stem, usually has a single leaf, and it is that tendril that wraps around whatever is supporting the vine. The other category are the vines that twine, and major wheeler is a twiner. And if you have a twining vine, you need a very sturdy trellis to support it, because it is going to wrap itself around the trellis. And later on maybe we can get a close-up of how this happens, but when it starts to wrap around, there is no way you are going to pull it loose. Whereas if it was a vine with that single tendril, you can just snip the tendril, it'll grow more, and pull the vine away from whatever it was attached to. Not so much with the twining vines. Now, what we do with any vine, but in particular major wheeler, is the first thing we would do is come in and get rid of the 4 Ds, dead, diseased, damaged, dysfunctional. And dysfunctional could be something that's just sticking way out here and is going to whack you in the face every time you walk through. I don't see a lot of dead, diseased, damaged, or dysfunctional here. So what we want to do is come down to the base and we look at how many major stems we have. And this one has 1, 2, well, it has 3, 4 really. So your option is every year you come in and you don't necessarily cut it at the ground. But this year we have decided that because this one comes out at kind of ankle level, could get you, and then comes up, we're going to take this one out this year. And then we've got, coming off of a major stem, one that comes back here that we don't really want because of the way it's growing. Now this one, I think I can pull out fairly easily because it's a much newer stem, but you can see by its growth habits how it can very easily twine itself around your trellis. What most folks end up having to do with honeysuckle is it grows and it kind of gets out of control, and every 4 or 5 years you do what's called a renovation pruning, where in early spring, as it's starting to put out new growth, you come in and you cut it back to about 12 inches above ground. But if you do that, then that means that year you really have no flowers, and it takes a year or so for it to grow back and really look good again. To avoid doing that, you want to come in every year and pick one, and in this case we picked one starting pretty low. But what you'll find as we try to take this out, because of the way it twines, we will have to take this out in pieces, and then I need to find where I made that cut stem. And here, if we can zoom in, just below where or just above where I made that cut, that single stem branches into 3. So now I need to cut those 3 loose, and then, well, there's the end of one. Here's the second one. It is all twined around another vine, and so we'll untwine it for a bit, but look at that one. That one then branched into 2. And this is how, by making one cut somewhere up the stem, you end up taking out maybe 25% of the total foliage. This one branches again. And where's my loose end? Here's my loose end. There we go. And you can see how many times it then branches out again and again and again. And that's how you end up with all this foliage up on the top. So I think I think I followed the 3 things that I cut loose. Now, in the process of doing that, I've noticed, like here is a little bit of dead, so I'll cut that back. And I'm just kind of inspecting. But this is the time of year when, you know, something like this could either be removed or just get it closer to the trellis so it can start its twining process. And you can aid that a little bit. That's just what it wants to do naturally. And anything coming back here, we can bring through and encourage it to twine on the trellis. And to go up a little higher, I'd probably get a few more of these up in the trellis, but I need a step stool or a short step ladder to do that. I'm looking now just to see, you know, this looks a little dead, but I can see out here we got some new growth. And here we've got some new growth. Here we've got some new growth, so it may look dead, but just give it a closer inspection and then try and get it back up on the trellis. So if you can do this every year, it's not a big job. It's when you let it go 4, 5, 6 years that then your option really is to do a major tedious task of untwining all those vines, or that's when folks resort to the, let's do the renovation pruning and I'll go a year or so without any flowers. So Major Wheeler is normally a very red or deep pink color. It is, ooh, I missed it. Here's my 3rd one. It is a native honeysuckle. There is also a very common yellow native honeysuckle, and the variety is called John Clayton. How they both got men's names, I don't know. But I just found, I thought I missed one of my 3 cuts. And coming around this side, I just found it. So let me pull those out. So there we go. I took off one down low and then followed that all the way up. And as I showed you, it would come up and it would branch 3 ways. And each of those would come up and branch 3 ways again. Now what I see is a little bit of dead. Every time you make a cut, you find something more. So we'll disentangle that. That was dead. And yeah, just keep looking around, and when in doubt, follow it all the way to the end. Now that one's broken, so we'll clean them up. I may have done that in pulling out the vine, but again, if you stay on top of it, this is not a major task. If you don't stay on top of it, it becomes a very tedious and time-consuming task. I mentioned how honeysuckle likes to twine, and if you let's pan down here to my right hand. You can see, just to get from the major stem over to the trellis, these 2 have just wrapped around each other. That's totally natural. They do that. Then it comes up and it latches onto the trellis, and one of them branches. So now I've got 3, and just follow my hands. It is just wrapping around and wrapping around and wrapping around, and that's what vines do. And it's why it's important to come in and clean them up a little bit every year, because Major Wheeler is a major bloomer. It will be loaded with blossoms, and if you haven't done any of this thinning out, then you don't have adequate airflow and sunshine, and you're more prone to fungal diseases and over time deterioration of the plant health. But yes, Major Wheeler, the native honeysuckles, are twining vines, so they need a really good support, and over time these vines are going to thicken, which just means that when it's time to cut one of those, you're going to be taking it out in pieces. So my last comment would be, when you're buying honeysuckle vines, be sure you're getting a native variety. And that is why you need the botanical name Lonicera sempervirens. Otherwise, you could end up with a non-native honeysuckle, which tends to be really invasive. That's it. I may spend a little bit more time after we shut down the camera looking for little dead pieces, but The last thing to do is to try and get this wrapped back around the trellis. We hope you learned something today, and we thank you for joining us.